these kids are indoctrinated. I see it every day. 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and I do some high school, but mainly 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And just the behavior in the hallway is out of control. And they're indoctrinated. Mm-hmm. You know, they're listening to this crazy music. They're watching things you and I had never seen on the internet. And they are just being, persuaded this way and persuaded that way with whatever comes along. So, oh man, it's a situation where, again, when you don't have a chance to take ownership of your own issues with your kids, you have some problems. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole thing about systemic racism. You know, I had one guy ask me, well, why does, these guys come in from Jamaica and Nigeria and they're so successful and African Americans are still stuck in the hood? That's because of the racism that's baked into society. But definitely from day one, once you come into this country, America, or United States of America, you begin to realize, okay, positioning, again, categories. Okay, mm-hmm. Those folks, are top, these folks at the bottom. Mm-hmm. It's baked into society. So we have to inundate our community and country with these images and this imagery so they can say, whoa, something's up. A revolution has started.
Here we are with Seasoned Brother, and our guest today is Mr. Don Franco, not just an author, which he is, 2-time book, and has another one coming out. Yes. But he was the best man in my wedding, and he is man of God, and we wanted to bring him in on one of our first Seasoned Brother episodes. So, Don, welcome to Seasoned Brother.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to our time together.
I'm excited about having you, Don. There's a lot of people we're going to have, but it was no better way to kick off than having you on the podcast today. Now, one of the ways I start off the podcast is I ask the one question. If we are the salt of the earth, and we are, mm-hmm. How do you see, what kind of seasoning do you see yourself as?
Okay, do I have a couple of options?
Yeah, you got a couple of options. There is the tenderizer there.
Real quick, you being the cook you are, I knew you had I'm not like you, but
there's the tenderizer, those that drop a word on someone, and it may not hit them immediately, but it marinates, and eventually it hits them. Okay. There's the binder, that which when you speak to something, it solidifies where they are in their life, and it begins to bring them together. They begin to connect the dots. Binders are used on your heavier meats to bring a lot of flavor together. Then there's your tenderizers. Those that break down the conversation in a way that makes it palatable. I'm missing one. There's the binder, there's the tenderizer, there's the flavorizer. That which takes the blend and gives a little flavor to it, makes it more applicable to those around it. Okay. So those are some of the ones I have out there for you.
Okay. Well, you mentioned something as far as breaking something down. Mm-hmm. And since I hold the office in the body of Christ, I guess, as a teacher, I am one who is more of an explainer, a teacher, one that likes to show principles, patterns, detect those principles and patterns and teach them and bring revolution to the conversation or to the fore. So I think that would be me, one that breaks things down and begins to, lead others through the breakdown of that information so that they can clearly see where they're at, whether it be career, whether it's our community as a people, even my children, where they're at as far as their season in life, So we're going to get into that, and hopefully by the time we're done, I'll be able to, exhibit that here on your podcast. But I think definitely an explainer, one that breaks things down, excuse me.
So Don, you're a husband, you're the father of 4, mm-hmm. and now you're a grandparent, which really makes you a seasoned brother. Yes. You have 2 boys, 2 girls. The boys are twins. So you have a breadth of knowledge from many standpoints on this generation, because you had to deal with it in your own household.
Yes.
Let me ask you the first question. How many years you and Twyla been married?
Well, I've been married, coming this July, which will be July, what year are we in? 2024. We've been married 38 years.
Now that's God. That's God.
That is God. Some days it's like, I want you out. Some days it's like, I want you out. But hey, that's the power of covenant, and we love each other. We truly do. And, obviously we haven't been honky-dory all throughout 38 years, but that's what marriage is about, fighting for the relationship, fighting to be an example to your children, to your grandchildren eventually, and even your community. So
yes.
38 years is a blessing. It really is.
That is awesome. The reason I bring that up, because when I look at the generation that is before us and the things that attack them and that stand in their way, you have two boys that have taken different roads in many ways, and dealing with your own home, is it a challenge dealing with the men of this day?
Well, I think, looking at, first of all, let's go into my background as far as how I was raised. I came up in a single parent household, and I knew coming up back in the day, I didn't want to be one who would allow my kids to see that same, scenario in their lives. So I made sure that, once I got married, I was going to stay married. I was going to stay committed and focused. So I know a little bit about that lifestyle. And by the way, my mom and dad split when I was 1. And my mom was on welfare and food stamps. And my dad was doing his thing. And I didn't really see him again until maybe I was 14 years of age on a consistent basis. And then my mom was doing her thing over here in the house. So I came up, I guess, with a poverty spirit, if I can say that. And, you're just looking for affirmation from a man, and you're looking in your community and you're saying, wow, why does Bill and John have their dad and I don't? Or, why does, Mary and Willie have their dad riding them around the car and I'm not in that position? So I felt like, my self-esteem was low. I felt like I was an impoverished individual. So coming up in that environment was a little rough, and I was always looking for affirmation. So again, I think by coming through that situation, I began to realize that, when I get older, I want to make sure that I'm always loving on my children, affirming them, doing the best things I can do for them. And, and I haven't been the best dad sometimes, in my estimation, but again, we're still respectful of one another, different things like that, how we always think we can do better. But, I definitely want to just prepare the table for them so that they can have a smoother transition into adulthood and into the various seasons in their lives. But I think these kids these days, I'm also a substitute teacher for the last 8-9 years, and I'm learning so much about youth culture, and I got my gray hairs and I got my aches and pains walking up and down the stairs. But looking at these kids, man, it's like they're looking for the same things that I was looking for.
Yes.
They're looking for direction, they're looking for affirmation, they're looking for love, they're looking for encouragement. And I'm talking to these guys, and it's amazing to me, because I'm 59 right now, if I could say that. I still vibe with them. I just love them, and I just try to help them out the best way I can. And, even the young ladies, I try to help them out as best as I can. And it's just an amazing thing. The same situation that I faced, decades ago is still in place. Now, it's a little more complicated with the social media today, with the kids that they go through. Because back in the day, you probably, went through the same thing I did. Hey, you get out of school at 3 o'clock, things were pretty much off. You might get a call around 5 o'clock after you did your homework. Hey, you hooping a day, or you playing football a day, or whatever. And then maybe a call from a young lady 7:30, 8 o'clock at night.
Yes.
And that was basically it.
Yes.
But the social media thing, man, with these kids, they are on all night. Somebody says something at 10:30 or 11:30 at night or 12:30 at night, and the boys call in and say, yo, man, you got to clap back at 12:30, man. Don't let it get away with that, this, that, and the other. They're up all night going back and forth. Next thing you know, 7 in the morning, they're trying to get ready for school.
Yes,
now they come to Mr. Franco all tired and worn out and just like, oh, man, Mr. Franco, I'm so tired. I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, I was hitting such and such up on TikTok or Facebook or whatever they're doing out there. I said, oh, man. Well, maybe not Facebook. That's what they got all those younger platforms that they get involved with. But anyway, I think our kids really just need, they need some solid leadership.
One of the things, Don, that I know is that you've always been a rooter for those that were the underdog, the underprivileged, those that I think that's the reason you've written the books that you have, to inspire and to really improve our community. What brought you there? How'd you get to that place?
Oh, man. Again, just I think looking at my background, where I've come from, again, impoverished situation, broken home, looking for affirmation, looking for love, not finding it, looking in all the wrong places. I was a big kid, hanging out with older kids, looking for love in all the wrong places, and that actually got me into trouble a little bit. But, I believe these slants or personal bents or burdens come from, God himself, and he's definitely placed a burden with me for a family. Because when I was coming up, I didn't see a lot of things that I needed to see as a young man, and I got married relatively young at 21 years of age, still in college, just had turned 21 at that. So now that I'm a family man, I have seen both sides of the fence, and I'm saying, if we don't become, to your point, strategic in showing solid families and why people should commit to family life, and why people need to commit to marriages, our society is going to really struggle, and we're seeing that now already in the African American community. And I tell you, others aren't too far behind because their families are starting to disintegrate as well.
That's right.
So I believe that burden came from God himself, as well as my practical insight that I have, and most people say, just pray for them, or just, lead them to Jesus. And my thing is like, no, we got to be a little more strategic.
Yes,
a little more strategic as far as how we reach these people and how we're going to, really show them the best life that they could possibly have, and what can we do to move them along that continuum to make sure that they are successful. And my belief is like, hey, if God can do anything, why can't he put in place a strategy to reach these kids, And that's what leads me to do the things that I do.
The blackdemographics.com has shown that since 1950, the decline of the marriage amongst the African communities continued to degrade. Now, other communities are degrading too, but not at the pace that the African American community is. What do you think one of those reasons is? And I'm not asking you to answer the ills of the world, but what do you think one of those reasons of that decline is? Oh,
it's no doubt. When you look at the prison population in this country, as far as how many African American men have been sent to prison, for various reasons, and we're starting to realize now that a lot of unjust reasons, being sent away. And then even when they would come out, they would have issues being in their household, maybe the mom and the 2 children or the 3 children, whatever it may be, were situated in a housing situation that did not allow the father to come back into the home. And if he did come back into the home, they might lose their benefits. They might lose their monthly check. So, those are the kind of things that I look at. Another thing would have to be, if I could add another one, would be the migration of jobs out of the inner city. Coming up in the day in the 50s and 60s, from what I hear, a place like Detroit, hey, if you got fired on Monday from one car plant, you could go right next door and be hired by Tuesday. And even in my personal life, in my personal observation, coming up in Linden, New Jersey, we had a highway called Route 1 and 9. And if you graduated high school, you didn't have to go to college. You can just go along Route 1 and 9 and find a factory gig where you might be making men's shoes or refrigerators or some type of desk or something. And you might stay there 25 years. And you'll go watch and retire. Or you might, say, hey, I'm going to work here a year or two, and then I'm going to grab me another second shift somewhere else, and I'm going to get my hustle on. And by the time I'm 20, I want to be out of my house with my parents, and I want to be on my own, starting to think about a family.
Yeah.
Again, those opportunities are gone, And just real quick, now we got, 35-year-old and 40-year-olds playing NBA 2K in the basement. So I think there are a lot of factors involved that really, influence the destruction of the family. And when you look at the overall destruction of family and other demographics, whether they be white Americans or even Latino Americans, media, which is something I hope we talk about, no one considers what goes on in media, Malcolm X, for example, says that media controls the minds of the masses. So when you start looking at media, coming up in the 70s, they had all these shows that really glorify single parenthood. This particular white woman was single and had 2 children, or this particular Julia, I believe it was, right? With the African American Diane Cow.
Yes.
She was single and had a child. Different people were just going through divorces at the time, and by the time they finished promoting that whole glorification of divorce, I mean, the country had the worst divorce rates it had ever seen. So, a media push on that kind of stuff also influences, people leaving their families and, wanting to do their own thing. So you have to consider a lot of stuff when you start looking at the breakdown of the family.
Let's stay there in media for a second.
Sure.
Because media is a lot bigger now because you have more platforms. It's not just your basic television and radio now. In fact, our youth consume social media, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, and that's where they get, and that's the reason I believe shows like podcasts like this have to be in effect, because they are inundating our people with information like never before.
Right.
And like I said, they're getting their information from podcasts, and from people that don't have an understanding, that are not espousing wisdom. How do we combat that media like that?
Oh boy, that's a great question.
I mean, you got the Breakfast Club that hits our kids as early as 7:30 when they're getting on the bus.
Yeah, I have a few things to say maybe later on about the Breakfast Club. But, when you look at media, it could be a blessing or a curse, just like anything else. And as a people, first of all, when you look at mainstream media, the mainstream television stations, the mainstream radio stations, African Americans don't control any of that. So that is a major problem for our communities. Listen, if somebody's telling me Byron is a great guy, he's an awesome leader over at, his company, awesome man of God, with his family. Now, I can spend time with you and I can understand that and say, wow, Byron is all those things. But if I'm starting to spend time with people who are your adversary and they're telling me, oh man, Byron, you got to watch him. He ain't all that you think he is. He ain't all that. And if I hear that over and over and over and over and over again, guess what? I'm going to be looking at you kind of side-eye like,
Yes.
I got to watch Byron.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is, Byron takes responsibility to define himself. And as far as the media world, we as a community, as African Americans, we haven't had a chance to define ourselves because we don't control anything. We don't control the media. And Jim Rohn, I believe he's the best-selling author and entrepreneur, he said, hey, when other people define you, guess what? They don't have much in store for you. You never want to be put in that position where someone is defining you. You want to define yourself, take ownership of your image or your brand. So that's a problem we have as a community. But now on the flip side of things, to your point, we do have new platforms. We have podcasts such as yours. We have YouTube. We have Facebook, where we can begin to put out different images and
create our own narratives.
Create our own narrative, exactly. And that kind of leads me to what I believe part of my purpose is. It's us defining ourselves. Because again, I played, high school ball and college ball, and you can ask me about that later, I guess. But the whole thing is, when I played high school ball, I used to get my backside kicked by the guys that were already in college, or that were maybe 2-3 years older than me. Okay, but guess what? I start coming back, and they do the same thing again, beat me up, whip me on the court. But I come back, and I come back. The next thing you know, I'm starting to get a little better. And they're starting to talk to me. Hey, you remember when you were in this position, leading a fast break? You could have did this or that, and I think you should have did that. You know what I'm saying? So they started imparting unto me insight and wisdom. But it was a rough route to go. But in return, I began to teach people 4 years behind me, smack them around a little bit, and I started raising them up. So it was like a mentoring cycle that was going on. So what I'm saying is, when it comes to media, we can't continue to allow the low class, the lowest imagery of our people into the mainstream. We can't allow that. We have to begin to speak out on those kind of things. And that's what mainstream media has done. You mentioned the Breakfast Club, for example, and I'll just say hip hop in general, because there has been some really striking dialogue lately about, hey, some of this rap stuff is really out of control. And it really is. Because when you begin to look at American society, and I'm a marketer, by the way, so I know how the mind is manipulated. We are in a position where, like you said, we have all these messages coming to us all day long, not just from media, but from our family, from our bosses at work, from our people that, are under hires that we're watching over. It's what they really call in the marketing sphere an over-communicated society with all these messages bombarding us. And what our mind does is say, whoa, I have to put things in categories so this person that I'm running or person that I'm leading can have an easier life. So this is where the thing comes in, like, hey, when I think of healthy food, I think of Whole Foods. When I think of burgers, McDonald's. When I think of a research project, Google. Unfortunately, our first category in this country was slavery. So when you think of African Americans, they're like, oh, that's those, I'll keep it real, those Negroes on the bottom.
That's right.
And it's not everybody, we're talking collectively, rather not specifically or not individually. You know, and there is a tacit hierarchy in place where we know who's at the top. White Americans are at the top, every other color in between, and the darker you are, the further you fall to the bottom. And that's the kind of role that slavery still plays in the society. So when we have the rappers come along talking about me and my, that's just reinforcing.
You and your naysayers.
Yeah, going right back to the bottom.
Yes.
And then meanwhile, you know, over years, a century ago, you know, we're seeing all the golden era movies of Hollywood. We see the swankiest hotels that they visit. We see the great parties that they attend. We see the beautiful big cars that they drove. And that just reinforced in our mind that, yeah, these folks are at the top. And then all of a sudden you have a maid, a rotund, asexual maid come along and say, you know, in that scenario, you know, 1940 movie or whatever, this big old beautiful home. Hey, y'all want some grits and sausages?
Hattie McDaniel.
Exactly. I didn't want to mention your names, but you did. Or you may have a servant come along in that scenario as the guy's getting ready to step out to his business location. Hey, sir, it's chilly out. Let me throw this overcoat on you. Let me button you up.
Cedric McDaniel.
Okay, there you go. So the whole thing is we're conditioned about this hierarchy that's in place. And, you know, this content that's coming from the Breakfast Clubs of the world or the rappers of the world, you know, they're reinforcing that lowest base of the stratum or the hierarchy or the pecking order that we have been associated with so long. So it's very interesting when you look at those kind of things. And thankfully, there's a solution. Now, the solution that I have is, first of all, I'm painting this picture, sort of kind of what we just talked about, these different gems, you know, to show that, hey, it does exist, you know. One thing that I came up with is called a glamour principle. Glamirl, glamour principle. And that simply says, hey, whatever is glamorized in media increases in real life. I'll give you two quick examples. First of all, when Birth of a Nation was put out in 1915 by D.W. Griffith, the Ku Klux Klan was dead. They put this movie out, which, by the way, was shown to the White House staff. First movie to be shown to the White House folks down there in 1915 and his friends, and etc. Then they put this particular movie on blast all over the country. Next thing you know, 6 million Klan members. Not just in the South, all over the world. I mean, all over the country. Okay, because they glamorized the white guy saving white America.
Yes.
And, you know, they used the Ku Klux Klan to do that. So that's the first example. The second thing that me and you can relate to because of our age, we look at A Different World, a spinoff from the
Cosby shit, that's right.
You know, they glamorized HBCU life. Historically black colleges and universities life, right?
And all of us wanted to go to the HBCU.
Yeah, I wanted to go to an HBCU, you
That's
know?
right.
And I got numbers and stats that show these are the facts as far as the effect of that program. Everybody wanted to go to an HBCU. So now, all of a sudden, again, getting back to the rappers and all these different folks who say, oh, we're just telling our stories. Oh, we're just keeping it real. No, you're hurting us.
Yes.
Because you and I both have been in those rooms where a $200 million deal wasn't good enough, but the $2 billion deal was good enough. We know how the numbers work. We know this music is being purchased all over the world at the expense of our African-American young people. Again, we can go into that deep.
And the plight of our communities.
Yes, and it's no doubt affecting our community. So the solution is this. Yeah, money's a part of it. You know, and even when you look at the word reparation, yeah, we need money, but we need to go another step further. And by the way, when you look up reparation at Merriam-Webster.com, it says payment for healing or payment for treatment.
Correct.
But it does not say payment needs to come from the government. Look it up.
But it's payment for those that hurt the group of people, am I right?
Payment for those who have been hurt. Talking about the source of the payment. Where's the payment coming from?
But didn't a form of reparations go to the Jews for what transpired in their lives?
I don't know what happened with them. I'm just talking about Merriam-Webster.com.
Got you.
Check it out.
Got you.
So what I'm saying is we need a powerful marketplace to create our own reparations to heal our land.
Okay.
And sometimes negative situations can be utilized for good when you use them in the right way. So what I'm saying is, yes, we need money, we need reparations, but we also need something else that's just as important, and that's our branding as a people in a sense. Because we're talking about, already we talked about it, we're already on the bottom of this pecking order, right? We know whites are at the top. God bless you all, you white folks. You know, I keep it real with y'all.
Well, not financially, but in the yes. So yes,
You know, and I keep it real because I got help for you guys too.
Yes.
Just listen closely. So what we want to do is we want to relocate from this position or this category, which is a marketing term, or this space from the bottom into something new, into a new arena where we can be the top, quote unquote, dogs in that particular arena or category. So the book that I wrote is showing how we need to go from the bottom to the top in the category of something else. Here's another term I came up with. It's called SIP purchasing, SIP purchasing, social issues purchasing. Because that's what we want to be known for. We want to do something so great in the marketplace where not only whites and Latinos and Asian Americans are like in awe, like, wow, look at what they did in the marketplace. But check this out, you ready? We ourselves have to be awed by this move. So our kids can say, whoa, I ain't the scum of the earth. And I'm just keeping it real.
Okay.
I'm around the kids all the time. They've given up. Now we can give them something to shoot for, like, whoa, I'm seeing me in a different light. I'm seeing us, my community, in a different light. So we have to begin to put on blast our positive people, our executives in corporate America, our authors, our entrepreneurs, our biologists, our technologists, all these different people that are doing great things. You see how we flip the script?
Yeah.
And now we can begin to show our kids, yo, you have greatness in you. Look, it's right before you. You see? For example, if I'm in Newark, New Jersey, and I'm walking the same streets of a guy who lived in Newark, 20, 30 years ago, and I bump into him at a cookout, or I see him on, a website or something, and they says, the information on this guy's like, yeah, he was raised in Newark, and he went through some troubles, this, that, and the other, but he decided to turn his life around, whatever, and now he's making $150,000 a year as a plumber. You read that story as a kid from Newark, you're like, wait a minute, this guy walked South Orange Avenue, which for those who don't know Newark, New Jersey, that's the main street in Newark, New Jersey that leads to Seton Hall University. But I'm just saying, this kid is like, wait a minute, I'm walking the same streets as this plumber, and he's making $150. If he can do it, maybe
I can do it too.
I can do it too.
Yes.
You see how the reverse works? Oh, everybody just calling each other N-word and H-word with this rapping stuff, and we're not going nowhere.
Correct.
So we have to inundate our community and country with these images and this imagery so they can say, whoa, something's up. A revolution has started. If you want to say that, I'll say it. And that's what we have to begin to do, to put ourselves in a new category. And it's going to take money to support us and bolster us in that new community, in that new category, so we can begin to see ourselves differently, and others can begin to see ourselves differently.
Where do we get that money from, though?
That's the whole thing. My thing is, whatever we can sell with this company, we can sell. So starting out, for example, since I am the founder and CEO of this movement, and the name of the company is FAMDO, FAMDO.com, you can check it out. We just started out with a clothing line, books, obviously. We have podcasts where, again, we want to get corporate America to come in and highlight their African American doers, people that are doing great things in their, in their companies. Those are a few things. You can obviously underwrite a book tour with Game Recognized Game Book, you know what I'm saying, to make sure we're profitable and that we're operating in the black. We can also sell whatever is available to us. I don't want to give away everything that we're looking to sell, but there was a research project done by McKinsey and Research folks, okay, and this is in the book. It says right now...
I deal with McKinsey all the time.
Okay, so right now about $250 million is up in the air. $250 billion is up in the air as far as what they identify that someone could come in and snatch away from African Americans if they do African Americans right. Number one, fight for social justice. Number two, show African Americans in advertisements. And three, provide back to the community for young people. The second thing is the advertising market is $326 billion, at least it was back in 2023, according to the Wall Street Journal. Again, since we don't own any media, guess what? We don't get our fair share of advertising dollars. Okay?
That's correct.
Plain and simple. Now, also, they might say, well, you have, this radio station that's hip hop, or this radio station that's R&B. Again, We don't control it. We don't own it. That's owned by a big, corporate behemoth, what I'm saying, that owns those particular stations. We need to define ourselves. We need to own our own stations. We need to get some of that $326 billion, advertising money coming back to our community. Okay? So again, if we're 13% of the population, and for easier math, I'll say 10%, that being African Americans, or 10% of the American population, we should be getting 10% of that $326 billion. That's right there, $32 billion. We get none. We get less than 1%. Maybe for like Black Enterprise and a couple of other magazines.
But we spend more than that.
Oh yeah, well, we spend way more than that. Exactly. But we don't get any of that. So that's another thing we have to look at. And if we don't get some of that money back, we have to start carrying out strategic boycotts. And I'm not talking about the boycotts that come on Thanksgiving, after you're gorging and watching football at 6 in the evening. Hey, don't go out on Black Friday. Really? Miss me with that, y'all. Miss me. We need to get a strategic way of boycotting some companies and putting pressure on them. You know what I'm saying? I know there's a lot of talk about DEI, et cetera. We, can talk about...
Well, they're trying to dismantle DEI across the board.
I'm telling you, whether they dismantle it or not, your brand belongs to the people. The people will be making decisions based on what they know about your brand. And crazy, radical leaders like myself, I'm just tired. I'm not taking it. And I just got to teach, educate our people, say, hey, this is why you should choose fast food A versus fast food B. This is why you should choose cola A versus cola B. This is why you should choose tennis shoe A versus tennis shoes B. We got to start thinking strategically. Because again, we're looking to get money into this pool of profits for FAMU to give back to local communities.
Media.
Yeah.
Do you think it's been strategically positioned to keep us at a certain plight while elevating others? When I look at some of the immigrants that have come into this country, the Indian Americans are usually about $113,000 medium family. But African Americans are 58, half of that. If you look at the top 6 immigrants that are have made their home in the United States, none of them are under $90,000. That 90,000 household medium, except for Hispanics who are right above African American.
Right.
Do you think that is intentional through media?
Oh, no doubt. When you look at, again, the hierarchy that's in place and the media that constantly reinforces the positioning of African Americans at the bottom, and our kids now starting to believe, hey, I'm going to be stuck at the bottom for the rest of my life. You go into a media center or a library at the school, and the kid is listening to, gangster rap, trap rap, and I go through my little schmeal with them. Who are you listening to? Oh, I'm listening to such and such, Mr. Franco. My next question's got to be, is he still with us? Nah, Mr. Franco, he's not with us. Let me show you who killed him. This guy killed him. This guy took his girlfriend. This guy's got his money. This guy's still on a run for such a... This is his brother. Blah, blah, blah. Everything about this guy. By the way, what's 2 + 2 + 1? Oh, Mr. Franco, I don't need to know that. I don't need to know that. Just makes you think. As far as where we're going. These kids don't believe they'll exist beyond 20 years of age. Some are 18. Some believe they'll be going by 18.
And that's probably those kids in the urban...
No doubt. In the urban area.
Yes.
But you're also seeing it in a working environment in my hometown of Linden, New Jersey. So this is the propaganda that they're spreading amongst the kids. And the whole thing with propaganda is you want to get as many people on the same page as possible. And once you have that, you can manipulate them. So it doesn't matter if you're in some of the toughest parts of Brooklyn or Chicago or maybe in Los Angeles. Their whole line through media is to get all these kids on one page, even in the suburbs. So they can manipulate. They can present this imagery and this feeling of you're not going to be nothing anyway. Why do you need to go to school? Why should you value your education? This is what's going on, And when you look at people who come over from other parts of the world, you mentioned India. And, I talk to a lot of Jamaicans. I talk to a lot of Nigerians, a lot of people from native lands that are, black people. They are raised in their country with a sense of, you know what? I can be successful. Because they're seeing black success.
But they're not identified as black in their own country.
But they're seeing it.
Yes,
They're
yes,
seeing it.
yes,
You're
yes,
right. They don't
yes.
identify it.
Yes.
But they're seeing it. They're seeing the black politician, the black newscaster, the black doctor,
That's
the
right.
black pilot, the black dentist.
That's right.
They're seeing all that success. Now they're seeing some poverty-stricken areas too, but they're saying, wait a minute, I can do some things here. And that's the whole thing about systemic racism. I had one guy ask me, well, why does, these guys come in from Jamaica and Nigeria and they're so successful and African Americans are still stuck in the hood? That's because of the racism that's baked into society. Some say that in the third trimester, there's a soap opera study where the baby was in the stomach, and once they were born and mom's favorite soap opera came on, they would take pause and realize, wait a minute, that's that song when I was in the tummy. So what I'm saying is some people say the tummy in the third trimester begins
to formulate a mindset and
mindset. And what's going on in the hood. I can give you examples if you want to know what's going on.
I know it's going to the, yes.
That's why we hear people playing Bach and Beethoven and all that while they're pregnant.
Correct.
But definitely from day one, once you come into this country, America, or United States of America, you begin to realize, okay, positioning, again, categories. Okay, those folks, are top, these folks at the bottom. It's baked into society. So imagine a little baby in the hood with little puffies and a little diaper on, runs up to the TV, sees Georgia playing South Carolina. That's just a little picture, reflection of, wow, those white folks are having a good time. Look at them at that game. Then that 2-year-old runs away. Now all of a sudden mom takes the baby out into the hood, dilapidated buildings, rough conditions. Oh, this must be for my people. See, it's all conditioning. It's all part of systemic racism. And that's one of the things that we have that causes the problem is we haven't defined systemic racism. We're comparing many times oranges to apples. No, let's define it. Let's get a comparison where we can make, hey, orange comparison to an orange comparison so we can understand. But see, there's money in, us not understanding. There's money in confusion. There's money to be made by media companies by us not understanding. Because if CNN is defining systemic racism this way, and Fox News is defining it this way, people are going to be all over the place trying to have a discussion. And then we're going to have our emotions get involved. But back to your question, that's why I believe, and I talk to folks, hey, when you first came here, they said, a lot of people from native lands, hey, I didn't sense any racism, I didn't see it, but they're starting to see some things now, with the shooting of young African American males and the George Floyd situations. And typically, let me say this too, lastly, they might not experience the systemic racism, but if they have a child here in America, more often than not, that child begins to experience different things because of the systemic racism, because that child is being raised in America, and then they go on to have troubles. And sometimes the parents are like, I don't know what's wrong with you, boy. What's wrong with you? Because they're raised in this systemic racism society, unlike their parents. So the offspring begins to have issues.
Why is it that we can't recondition our youth to understand that they can build within their own community instead of looking outside of their community?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, when you look at what's going on from the media world, these kids are indoctrinated. I see it every day. I see white teachers looking at African American kids in the hallways every day saying,
and what grades do you teach again?
I teach mainly 6, 7, and 8.
Just to give the listener the understanding that you actually deal with the formative minds.
Yeah. 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And I do some high school, but mainly 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And just the behavior in the hallway is out of control. And I hurt for the kids because I understand the bigger picture, the larger picture. But I see, many teachers just wondering, what is going on? Let's be real, what is wrong with those people? And they're indoctrinated. They're listening to this crazy music. They're watching things you and I have never seen on the internet. And they are just being, persuaded this way and persuaded that way with whatever comes along. So, oh man, it's a situation where, again, when you don't have a chance to take ownership of your own issues with your kids, you have some problems, And like you said, in the 30s and the 40s, we had to create for ourselves. It was mandatory. There were no, body coming to save us. We had to do it. And we have to revisit that type of plan again. I really believe that, in the next 50 to 100 years. No doubt we have to do that. But the whole thing is, indoctrination takes place with these younger minds. Now you're starting to get into the algorithms. You're a tech guy. Hey, when I go online, I like to work out. Thank God I got my run-in today. I'm feeling really good. But when I go online, hey, I'm getting tennis shoes or running shoes sent to me every day. I'm getting, Gatorade and all other kind of drinks, coming through my timeline. Mm-hmm. Hey, you have a kid, and I hear this goes on in elementary school. You have a 5, 6, 8-year-old kid listening to trap or murder rap all day long. The machine doesn't know he's an 8-year-old. He's going to constantly send him that murder rap. So by the time you're 14, 15, you think it's above board to maybe kill someone. This is where we're going as a community, as a world. So we better come together and take ownership of these issues and begin to build in our kids and do the things I talked about earlier, as far as letting people that are doing great things in the marketplace share their experiences and emphasize education, so that these kids can say, yo, I want to do something in life.